Acoustic Energy, for those people who don't know, if you didn't follow the hi-fi scene for the last 20 years maybe, they're a small UK-based manufacturing company that makes speakers, tend to be medium to low price speakers, and I've got here their AE100 Mk2s, cheapest in the range, £260, but you can go all the way up to their AE520 floor standing speakers, 3,650. But don't turn off if you want to buy or have bought more premium speakers up their range, because maybe there's something to be said of these speakers having a house sound like others in the range, and also being able to extrapolate value for money across speakers in their range. So these speakers are about the same size as my KEF LS50 Metas that I own. I've got the royal blue model, although obviously that's a different price bracket, more towards, or well actually over slightly, £1,000, but you can get the AE100 Mark IIs in this walnut veneer, satin white or black finishes. Driver wise, you've got a 130mm bass mid-range unit, 25mm soft dome tweeter, and then if you look around the back, a long duct type bass reflex port, which Acoustic Energy say is for reducing chuffing noises. You'll notice that if you look at the front of the speakers, the treble waveguide, this kind of hardened plastic waveguide that it uses, it's overlapping the mid bass unit. And this, I think, plays to trying to integrate the treble into the bass more, making the drivers slightly closer together. On the back of these speakers, you'll notice they have a single set of binding posts, no dual posts, which probably isn't a problem for speakers of this class. You're going to be using a stereo amplifier. You're not bi-amping, requiring two sets of speaker wire into the same speakers, or indeed bi-wiring that we used to do of old, where essentially if you've got decent speaker wire, you don't need to buy wire nowadays anyway. So the veneer of these cabinets are actually quite nice. There's nice contrast between the dark black parts and the walnut brown parts. I've actually got these paired to the excellent Cyrus 1 cast that I reviewed a few years back, and I'm revisiting it because I actually bought this one myself, and I'm using, I should say, cheap speaker wire to connect these speakers up. They don't need expensive speaker wire. You don't need expensive speaker wire. I think I actually paid £4 a metre for these Torque 3 cables that I've still got, that I bought back in 1997. The shops actually used to say you used to get more copper per pound back then than maybe you do now. So whether that makes them better sounding, I don't know whether you can say that, but anyway, it doesn't really make much odds because speaker cables are speaker cables. So far as going back to the Cyrus 1 cast that I mentioned, this is a Class D based stereo integrated amplifier. It's got a DAC on board with digital inputs, and at the front, two selection knobs, one for volume, one for input. Nice flashy lights with this amp, which is quite pleasing when you start it up for people like me, got small minds, and also Chromecasting inbuilt as per the name cast. Remember, Chromecasting up to high resolution sample rates, but it also does AirPlay too. Obviously, if you look around the back, you'll see all the connections I mentioned, the digital inputs I was talking about. It's also got pre-outs, phono inputs, and a line level input. But I actually really like the way that it switches on to Chromecast and AirPlay content from standby via its Wi-Fi antennas. And I got this one, I should say, for half its normal price. Started off at £1,300. You can buy these in the UK if you're UK based, maybe elsewhere, similar convertible currencies, for £650. That's an absolute steal for this amplifier. So despite some quibbles, I just thought when I reviewed it that the Class D amplifier that it uses inside it is absolutely tremendous. And it uses this type of impedance matching technology to match impedance to the speakers to get the best out of everything concerned. I looked at the Audiolab 6000A that retails for £650, but it's low down on power and, you know, Class D being able to drive speakers really well. with a known quantity, I went for this amp, and especially at that price, I think it would be absolutely tremendous over the Audio Lab. So the soundstage of these speakers is one area that really stands out when you start playing them. Bass is nice and deep. It's quite tight, relatively speaking, at this price, and resolution is good. The top treble was pretty well judged. It's not overt, it's not in your face, and the designers of these speakers have obviously gone for a speaker that's pretty well balanced. So what I'm saying is tonality is pretty good, and it's not either too forward or too bassy, which seems to be with really cheap speakers, the extremes of where poor quality kind of sits. It's not like that with these Acoustic Energies at all. I think the bass dynamics is okay, and I'm going to say that coming from the reference of a much pricier speaker, or tending to review much pricier speakers. It tends to be an area that you notice when you review a cheaper speaker to that you're most used to. But we could go on with all these descriptives, but at the end of the day, I think it's just enough to say that these are, for this type of money, good sounding speakers, because let's be honest, people who are buying them probably aren't into so much audiophile pretentiousness as us lot are, or I am, and so that's all they want to know. It's perhaps unsurprising to think that these speakers would be good for the money, or that they would punch above their station at this price, with the law of diminishing returns that exist in hi-fi. Also, I think these aren't probably very challenging speakers to make, and it's not challenging to make a speaker at this price sound good. That's not to diminish these speakers, but it's just to be honest and put them in their place and say they do what they should do at this money. I've got nothing to compare these to, but the fact that that is the case isn't necessarily a disadvantage, because I think you're probably going to be trading off small differences between other speakers of a similar price. There's perhaps more scope for budget speakers to be closer together than there is for more premium speakers. As to house sound, I don't know. Sometimes you see this thing on forums, this erroneous thing where people say that a brand of speakers has a particular house sound. Well, obviously it's going to depend upon each individual design, so you're going to get differences between ranges. But if the speakers up the range that Acoustic Energy make are better and improve on these, then I think they would be pretty good speakers as well. But having said that, there's clearly going to be some very competitive speakers amongst other brands, similar prices to those top prices of the Acoustic Energy speakers. So it's going to be a very competitive race. So that's it this week, short and sweet, and on to the next one. Thanks for watching.